Good morning and welcome to the next UNIFE discussion for the European Year of Rail. This morning we're looking at the topic of enabling digital and intelligent rail freight in Europe. I'm Chris Jackson, Editor-in-Chief of Railway Gazette Group, and it's my pleasure to moderate today's discussions. Rail freight has a key role to play in meeting the European Commission's climate and digitalisation targets, particularly around the decarbonisation of transport. That will require improvements in customer service, operational efficiency and productivity, making rail more attractive and competitive, as well as boosting capacity to handle a significant increase in volume over the next couple of decades. This morning, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts to discuss that vision of digital and intelligent rail freight in Europe, the challenges to achieving those targets from a system perspective, and the technology initiatives that are currently underway. In particular, we'll be looking at the European Digital Automatic Coupling Delivery Programme under the umbrella of Shift to Rail and exploring the priorities for the new Europe's Rail Research Partnership, where the so-called fifth flagship area focuses on sustainable, competitive, digital, green rail freight services. So without further ado, let me introduce this morning's panel. We have with us this morning Carlo Borghini, Executive Director of Shift to Rail joint undertaking and now Europe's Rail. Christoph Kloser, Head of Yard Solutions at Siemens Mobility, as a co-leader of the Digital Automatic Coupler Work Package 1. Roberto Tioni, Vice President of Technology at Wabtec. Joseph Doppelbauer, Executive Director of the EU Agency for Railways. And hopefully joining us shortly, Anna de Parnay-Grunenberg, who's the member of the European Parliament. Remember, we've got some questions. We're going to go through the discussion, but you can send in questions from the floor at any point during our discussions. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, so feel free to send your questions in, and we will try and address them as we go along. As we're still waiting for Madame de Parnay-Grunenberg, I'm going to go first to Carlo Borghini, actually. Carlo, digital innovations in freight, how will Urge contribute to improvements in the rail freight sector more generally?
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for having invited Europe's Rail here to this event. It is one of the first events that we are participating. We strongly believe that digitalization and automation are a major opportunity for changing and transforming the overall rail system. And there is a major opportunity in rail cargo because we depart from a performance level that, in our opinion, is and is shared by the sector, is underperforming compared to the potentiality that are there. I think the major aspect where we will be focusing in order to introduce such transformation will be working together as a sector on a system approach. So clearly we will look at the key enabler. Well, I think Christoph and Roberto can speak a lot about technology, digital automatic coupling, and so on and so on. But the idea to look at the transformation that is required as a system, looking at infrastructure, vehicle, seamless operation, subsystem that need improvement, and not only for rail cargo, but looking at the full rail system. So how this will interface with passenger, with the logistic value chain, how to create seamless operations and avoid trains blocked at the borders for hours, will be, I think, the way that we will have to tackle the digitalization of the rail freight. We have clear, quite short-term targets. We need to increase rail cargo of 50% by 2030, double it by 2050. We know that we will see in front of us a decline of rail cargo because some material that we today constitute an important market are going away, like oil, charcoal, and so on and so on. At the same time, there is a major opportunity to increase the market. So I think rail should be ready to engage with the logistic value chain, with the shippers, in order to be able to take on the role to ensure a growth of transport, generally speaking. The technological operational solution that we will be working on in Europe's rail, building upon the results of Shift to Rail that are quite important. The DAC is one of them. I think will be the way to achieve it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, thank you. I'm delighted that Anna Debane Grunenberg has managed to join us. Welcome. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
I think it would be helpful if we can put the whole sort of digitalization program into context and look at, if you like, at the political expectations on rail freight over the next few years, and how rail freight can contribute to the climate targets, and what the politicians in Europe are looking for from the rail freight sector. So maybe you can advise us on that.
Yeah, I can try at least. Good morning, everybody. Just to begin at the very beginning, we are now arriving in an area of political discussion where it is clear that the rail must be the backbone for sustainable freight transport, because we have to fulfill the climate goals. So it's a little bit a new political culture when we are discussing among us in the European Parliament on that. But there is still a long way to go, I have to say. And unfortunately, I have to mention this again and again. And the first point is maybe that we need a really fair competition between the modes of transport. So maybe I'm not here in the good part to say that, but we have to as citizens and as voters, and to really see that if we don't have a fair competition between the modes of transport, it will make the shift to rail really difficult. So that's the first point where we are working on. The year of rail is just at the end, but it helped us a lot to put the rail back on the political agenda. However, we need more clear commitments and more investment. For instance, in the coalition talks in the new government in Germany, we agreed to prioritize rail over road in the future, what's going on freight. And I wish the Commission at the EU level would have done the same. For example, making the indexes and how to fulfill the recovery fund. We haven't seen really precise numbers or percentage how to invest concrete in rail and rail freight. That's a missed opportunity. But in future, if you want to see the targets achieved, we have to invest, and so we have to link the money towards a system that can help us to fulfill the climate goals. And I'm wondering why rail and rail freight in specific does not exploit all technical possibilities. So we have really lack now, and we know what it could be possible. We have it as a pilot project always, but we have to broaden the minimum. What we see is that's digitalization, that's a coupling thematic. We know that, and yeah, I'm really keen on learning more about new technologies and new ideas, and that's really good that we have so much innovation, but we have to fulfill the base, and we know where are the priorities, and so we have to be really clear on that. And now with the successor program from the Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking and the 9 other European partnership, we want to accelerate the green and digital transition. And we have now the chance to do better because we have the goals and we know the basic that we need on track. So that would be just to open the debate now, and can come back again with more thoughts later.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'm going to jump around and change the order slightly, and I'm going to bring Joseph in at this point, actually, because Anna has very helpfully sort of said, you know, we need to look at rail in the total context of decarbonisation and the climate agenda. What's your long-term vision for the European railways, Joseph?
Well, just continuing where Anna started, it is imperative to increase the modal share of rail in freight, for the very simple reason that rail freight is 5 to 10 times more energy efficient than road. This is because of the lower rolling resistance and the lower air resistance, and rail emits 10 times less CO2 per ton kilometer. Needless to say that most of the energy that is today used in rail is already coming from zero carbon energy. So these are all important facts, and reality is we have only around 18% modal share in Europe, if we look at the various countries, the modal share of rail freight is very different for the countries. Now, the obvious question, if we want to increase the modal share for rail, is where should this transport volume come? And the answer is also quite obvious. It has to come from road. If you look into the road transport, and I have done the analysis looking into the transport volume per distance class, then I would think that we should attack the long distance road freight, because for me there's absolutely no justification at all why any transport on road should go over distances longer than 700 kilometers. We know the first and last mile problems for rail, but when you go long distances, 700, 1,000, 1,500, there are even over 2,000 kilometers. If we do this, if we shift 90% of road transport that is going over distances more than 700 kilometers, we immediately double the modal share of rail to 36%, so from 18 to 36, and at the same time we have a reduction of 40 million ton CO2 per year. Of course, if we want to double the rail freight volume, we immediately need the innovations that come from Europe's rail joint undertaking, because we need to create the capacity, we need to create the quality, we need to create the efficiency so that this transition can happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joseph. There's some very good, very helpful numbers there. Interestingly, we've I believe they've been running some numbers in the rail freight group in the UK, and they reckon that intermodal can actually be competitive with road down to as little as 100 kilometers if the conditions are right and you get the efficiencies like running a train twice a day instead of once a day and maximizing the productivity. So anyway, that's given us a very good overall concept. Maybe we turn perhaps now to Christoph Klose. You've been working on the digital automatic coupler, which is one of those step change technologies that everybody's looking to as a boost for rail freight. Can you sort of say where you've got to with that at the moment?
Okay, thank you very much. And I only can, let's say, maybe and try to follow a little bit up what colleagues said before. One of the most important thing is that what we have to understand that the freight sector on rail currently is heavily depending on manual processes. And if we're saying manual processes, then we have not one manual processes, we have manual processes in all countries in a different way. So what we have to achieve with the next level of technology and also with this transformation where the digital automatic coupler is a very important element is to automate these processes and to harmonize these processes with the help of technology, with digital technology, to really make it faster, more reliable, and to deliver what also is requesting is to have a higher flexibility, because when we only rely on the rail system on block trains, we might not achieve the offering the market is really needing to make rail freight attractive also for the shippers. And therefore, to make the rail system more agile, more flexible, is one of the aim of all this, what we try to introduce in terms of the technology we're currently looking. The digital automatic coupler definitely is a key element to do this, because uncoupling is currently one of the most manual and time-consuming processes. So these have to be optimized, but this is not all. So the processes on the borders, the processes to handle, to communicate between the different players, because we have a large number of players in the market. This has to be optimized as well. The yards have to be optimized. So this is very important aspect to optimize these with the help of the technology, with the unified technology, and also with unified processes around all these new technology to make the rail sector in Europe really an integrated one and a harmonized one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the whole, I saw Carlo nodding furiously there in around the cross-border issue, and I was about to come to him on that very point. Joseph's saying we need to be 1,000 kilometers or more. There's not many places you can go in Europe for 1,000 kilometers without crossing at least one border. So Carlo, what's your thought on digitalization as a way to enable cross-border operations?
Well, Christoph said it all to a certain extent, because he talked about moving from manual processes to digital processes. And when you introduce digital processes, clearly already this will allow to have all the information available and shared in advance without having to stop to discuss about things or to stop and to make controls. So the idea would be that we have a full reliable exchange and seamless exchange of information between the different stakeholders that are involved in the process. In a manner that everyone is aware of what's coming, was expected. And I think that this is really where we need to change. Fortunately, today we have a huge and competent workforce that every single day help the rail freight to be up and running and delivering. This is really, I think, is the major aspects. But if we want to maximize the performance of the rail, we cannot continue ask people to screw together train wagons, to control with their feet the brakes, and not having, let's say, a reliable systemic approach to these type of things. So the digitalization effectively helps to introduce in a systemic manner and, let's say, controllable and shareable manner all the information related to the wagon. Effectively, what we are trying to do with the digitalization of is making the train that today is a wagon as a piece of iron. We need to be honest, today is a pure piece of iron and intelligent component that will be part of the full logistic value chain. And I think the DAC, why it's important, is not only because it's a key enabler. I think from the innovation, there is, let's be honest, there is not so much innovation in the technology itself. Where the major innovation will be the digitalization and electrification that will be made available for the wagon, that will allow information about the status of the wagon or the status of the brake, communication, and so on and so on. So all this information will be changing the way the business model will be operated. The major difficulty that I think we'll face, and I think Anna was clear about it, and I think she correctly said and set the scene, we need to move from the research innovation that we have been working on for many years. I think the DAC also in this is a clear example to deploying in the market. I think this is what we need to do. And I'm really happy to see that also the German coalition government has decided to keep the DAC as one key element, because it's simply saying, thank you very much, you have done the work. Yes, the work has to be perfectionate because we know that we need to define specification and so on and so on. But guys, we expect you to bring it in the market by the end of the decade, and starting not at 2030, but to start at 2025. So now, and I think the work also we are doing with Joseph, with ERA, in order now to define the specification that will enter the TSI 22 package, is a sign that there is a convincing approach to these type of things. So I think now we need to combine to start really to bring inside the rail cargo system, because otherwise we have a lot of political pressure to, and maybe we will have also legal actions in a manner to ensure the transfer of goods from road to rail, but rail will not be ready to take it on board. So we need to be sure that we are ready fully to engage with the road sector and understand how we can all this evolving. And be clear, the increase of rail cargo and cargo in Europe and the world will be immense in the next decade. We'll talk about 30% and more. So only if already we double only our market share, still there is a huge opportunity for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's time we brought Roberto in. He's been sitting patiently there as a leader in the in flagship area 5, and this whole focus on deployment as part of Europe's rail. How are you going to enable this deployment of technologies?
But thank you for the question, Chris. The point is very simple. We are, first of all, starting from very solid basis, and the bases are shift to rail, ID5, where the freight, let me say, component, the bricks have been explored, developed, achieved a good TRL level, and so on. And then, mostly thanks to the EDDP program. EDDP is today in full force, providing technology recommendation, technology suggestion, technological solutions already available in terms of the DAC definition, as well as use case definition and so on. So now how to deploy it, it's simple to say, and maybe it will be complex to implement, but it will be to synthesize all what came from shift to rail and from EDDP in actions, in practical actions, synchronized, very well organized. And I think that here we are entering in the key point of the ERJU, Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking project. It will be really to harmonize all the input that we are going to receive from EDDP and shift to rail, and to approach the problem at system level. If we look at what shift to rail did, it explored the technological solutions. If you look at EDDP, EDDP is still exploring a technological solution, but is starting to approach the problem at system level. Here into ERJU, we shall start immediately from the system point of view and to go top down. Simple examples are the fact that EDDP today is providing several working groups looking for technological solution in communication, in the DAC, in the power generation, in the power management. All this will provide recommendation, suggestion, but at the end of the day, this will result in a train. And this train is only a piece of the puzzle of the infrastructure. This train today, as Carlo told, is a piece of iron. Tomorrow, it will be, let me say, a Pandora box for data generation. This train will provide so many information that today are totally unavailable. Okay, so many information that at the very beginning of ERJU, we have to foresee how to manage before those data will arrive somewhere and will be unmanageable or unusable or simply unknown. Indeed, the real scope of ERJU is a top-down approach, is really to start, and we know we will have a system pillar that will drive the system integration, where system, there is a nice definition that was reported in the SRIA document, SRIA from HERA. It is the system of systems. Each of us is looking at his own technology as a system, but we are always subsystems of a higher level system. And also this project will be a subsystem of a higher level system that is the total European, what it is called SERA, Single European Railways Area. And from that point, we have to start and to deploy the solution in ERJU. Again, use cases validated and maybe approved by the ERA, because when we imagine that the infinite use case, this technology will open, we will enter again in a world that is opening the future. And here we come to the technological challenge for the deployment. Today, we are starting from EDDP. EDDP is giving good technology solution, but this system shall work for the next 30, 40 years. And I am used to make an example to my colleagues that I repeat also here. We have to imagine what Apple did with the iPhone. The iPhone is developed today to support apps for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Today, we are talking about use cases that we are identifying today. And we are developing an iPhone, but this iPhone has to be developed open enough to support all the use cases that will come in the future years that we have not yet foreseen. And when you say how to deploy it, it is to start immediately with a strong system approach and system integration approach before entering in the hardware development. Otherwise, the risk will be to make a short-term solution that will have a short-term life.
Absolutely, a very, very valid point there. System of systems and putting in the foundations for the next 20, 30 years. But as Anna de Pane-Grunenberg said, you know, rail is not doing this alone. rail, if you like, is a system within a system of systems. We're talking about a single European transport area, in fact, and we have to think about rail in relation to other modes. Anna, do you think that where rail is going is the right part of this package, and what we're learning in rail can also apply to other modes as well?
Yes, I think we have all to learn from each other, so that's not the point. But I think we have now to step in realization already if it's imperfect. But just we have to take the next point now. We see in the coalition agreement from the German government, we wrote down we want to have 25% of our goods coming through rail till 2030. That's not even a decade, so it's really fast. We are writing down that we want this single wagon approach because we need it. And we are going to invest in this really concrete mobility hubs so that we can combine the transport. And that's all I think now we have to push together. And of course, we don't have to focus just on one narrow thing, but we know the first step we have to do with digitalization. And also, as our colleague just mentioned, it's about open corridors for rail freight, but also open data. We have to think about this really European room where we want to share the data to make it really agile and good system for the future. And I think we can learn there a lot, maybe from other systems that are more agile and more dealing with data and information. And now we want to fulfill it in the real world. So that's a little bit more complicated, but we need the transport of goods, and we want to see everything that we learn from other systems to be made in rail. And we have some good ideas, good structure. I see them when I'm on the field, but it's really a pity that we don't have fulfilled the ERTMS in Europe. It's a better success in other places in the world than in Europe. So we have to be really concrete. What are the next steps we need to be faster on that? And I think, yeah, I think we can learn sometimes, or from Switzerland also. We see they have really concrete and logical aspects. They say, okay, what are the external costs from road transport? Let's charge it and let's invest that in rail. It's really easy, but it's the way it should be. So have a look on the goals, being really close to the operators, because we have to see what the lack are. But on the main political issue, we have to be clear on our goal and to invest in that.
Okay, absolutely. It's a bit of a shame we don't have an operator on the panel, but maybe Joseph can pick up on this. You know, how far does technology drive the capabilities of the operations, and how much do the operators have to demand that the technology evolve?
Well, this is the famous chicken and egg problem, but I believe that we need to break the dichotomy. As I explained before, we need the capacity, because if we want to move further transport volume to rail, we need the capacity. We also need the quality, because currently the reliability of rail freight is not good enough. The customer information is not good enough. We cannot predict the estimated time of arrival. So we need to innovate. At the same time, we need to improve the regulation that eliminates the problems at borders, for instance. And of course, some of the discussion here was, and I believe Carlo referred to the people, to the manual work that is still involved. We need to make sure that this is transformed into a new set of digital processes, and that the regulation keeps up with the evolution of technology. So my statement is we need both. We need the technology development. We need to step up the technical capabilities. We need the regulation that enables the technology, And both work streams have to go in parallel because they support each other. We can be much more advanced in the regulation, and technology can rely on a better support. I just wanted to highlight another aspect, and Anna alluded to. We have to speak of the European transport system. So we should no longer speak of the European railway system. And of course, we have to make rail the backbone of this European transport system. But that means that from a data perspective, from a digital information perspective, we need to fully integrate rail and the other transport modes, because a shipper who wants to have a door-to-door transport needs to get seamless information. So we need to innovate. We need to innovate, making, as Roberto said, the train a Pandora box of data generation, but we need to integrate these data for the overall benefit of the transport chain.
And Roberto said about took the iPhone analogy of preparing a platform that will allow evolution 10 years ahead of things that we haven't even thought of. How does that fit with the agency's sort of regulatory role?
No, that's exactly our role, and we shouldn't forget that one of the issues with rail is the slow evolution, the slow introduction of innovation. You know that the innovation turnaround time in rail is around 25 years. So by nature, we are slow. But in the digital age, this speed is not good enough. We have now a window of opportunity for rail. We had the European Year of Rail. We had the Recovery and Resilience Facility. We have Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking. We need to define the future now. And part of the answer, Carlo and Roberto alluded to it, is in the systems approach, the systems of system approach, and will have to happen in the system pillar. By the way, one of the objectives of the system pillar is also to harmonize operation, but to harmonize operation not looking backwards, but to harmonize operation looking forwards to the digital age.
Excellent. I think it's long been apparent that more harmonization is needed. Getting back, we were talking about the rollout of, you say 25 years for the take up of technologies. And the question that I heard posed last week is about, how do we manage the migration to the European Digital Automatic Coupler? How do we actually facilitate that rollout? Christoph, with your Siemens hat on, how do you facilitate the technical rollout of innovations? Is it the availability of the equipment? Is it the funding? Is it the sort of non-commercial drivers? How does it all work?
I would say it's a little bit of all, I would say, but one of the most important factors for a quick rollout is standardization and harmonization. Because we cannot afford to make different variants for different operators and different countries. So this has to be really a harmonized approach, and it has been mentioned also by Joseph before, the processes around this have to be harmonized. So this is one of the key elements also from the supplier side, that we don't have to distinguish between the different variations, and this was maybe one of the learnings from ETCS and from ERTMS, that we really have to stick to a unified system, and we shouldn't allow for real deviations from the standard, because this will definitely not help us to speed up. The next aspect from my point of view is also the, let's say, transfer of data and transfer of information. I think Roberto mentioned it before, these new trains will generate a lot of data. But this data might not be only needed at one place, they might be needed at different places. And we have so many players here in this arena. We have the infrastructure, we have the wagon owner, we have the rail operators. They all will generate data, but the data generated by a wagon owner, for instance, is important for the infrastructure manager and for the rail operator, for instance. So it's also very important that this data will be exchanged, that we are not in a situation that each and every player have to generate his own data, and then we have to do it twice or three times to generating the data. Therefore, it is, let's say, to also freely exchange the data will be very important to enable then also the level of digitalization and digital applications on top of that to really make all the benefits, because if the data are hiding between firewalls and will be not available to the right people and to the right stakeholder here in this arena, then it will be also maybe a problem to really get all the benefits implemented. And as already said before, the time is now. And therefore, the standardization activities not fall short only on focusing on some, let's say, mechanical aspects and maybe some aspects on the wagon as such. Also, the ecosystem needs standardization. But I see us on a good way because the whole sector is united, I would say, in EDDP, in ERGU, and this is the right platform from my point of view to drive it forward.
Excellent. I would say in terms of availability of data, it's a challenge when you have a competitive structure in terms of within the market between operators, between shippers, and we've seen in the public transport sector that where authorities have opened up open data, it's encouraged innovators to come in and build apps that use that data and provide information by combining data feeds that you wouldn't otherwise have thought of. Now, there's obviously scope to do that in the freight sector, but you have to find a way in which you can do that within a commercial environment. Carlo, is that's something that you've thought about on the commercial side of data sharing?
Yeah, I think the data is really a key element of the game. But I would like to go and make maybe a simple example about especially taking the estimated time of arrival. Is a major topic on the table for years. Okay. Today, a road transport, to be clear, a truck goes from one part of Europe to the other, most probably relying on any type of application with satellite positioning and whatever. And I don't think that, and based on these, they will estimate the time of arrival. So they will say, okay, I will be there in 18 hours. But we know that will be maybe 19 or maybe it will be 17. And nobody will go to consider liable the application provided information for 1 hour more or 1 hour less. We need to be at the moment, if you want to share the data about the information about the estimated time of arrival, we need to provide the information and decouple it from the legal obligation associated to the information. So we should start, as you said, to go towards the famous beta version, into which I start to provide the information, help people to understand the benefit of the information. And maybe in the future, when we reach the necessary level, we will be able to introduce the legal combination to do this. But today we are stuck in this situation. ETA is not a mathematical issue. It's not an algorithm issue. I think can be solved in a few minutes by any startups in this world, okay? But when ETA become the reason for which the infrastructure manager can be considered liable for the delay of the train, the shipper can be considered liable to the final clients, and so on, nobody will ever introduce the ETA. And everyone will duplicate the information because they have the information, because you can provide a driver with a mobile phone and you know where is your train, you know where I arrive, most probably, more or less, okay? So I think when we need to start to think, as was said before also by Anna, I think, how, or also you mentioned, how we can learn from the other sector from this point of view and introduce the same logics inside the rail system. But start with what is the benefit that you can have from, and I will not talk about sharing information, but the management of information, how we ensure that we are able to manage the data and in a manner that we benefit as a sector. Otherwise, we will have vehicles that will be full of different sensors, capable to communicate only to themselves, to their owners, without sharing the data, duplicating costs, consuming energy, because we know perfectly that all this stuff consume energy and contribute to carbon footprint, while not creating really opportunity for improvement for rail. I think this is really also something that we are looking at. For this reason, we have decided together with the colleagues that are the future candidate, future member of the JU, to set up one a transversal topic that we fundamentally will be around the digitalization or the digital twin and the necessary elements around it, that will be effectively provided by the JU and made available to the sector as a real basis on which we can anchor all the data that will be developed in the different flagship area of action, priority areas that we will have in the program. And the objective is really to ensure that the structure of the data, the communication of the data, building upon also the experience that we have in Shift to Rail on the interoperability framework for the ticketing, something that, in my opinion, now with the program that has been developed by the different actors will have to be resumed and once again brought to the market. But building upon this experience to be sure that the data becomes something in which we can profit and take the value of it, decoupling exactly the legal consequences of the data, at least at the beginning, because this will create a major leverage of information. And when you go in a port, I've been in the port here in Antwerp, and the train is ready to be loaded with a vehicle, unloaded with vehicle to put in a ship, and nobody is there because they don't know if the train is arrived or not. The value that we lose in these type of things, clearly what is the result? That someone will find another more reliable mode of transport. And I think this is really the change. And now I go back 1 second to about the migration. Migration requires an investment plan. If I take the migration of the duck, we need to start to look at the migration in a different perspective, asking as rail sector, a rail operator, which is the scenario that we would like to look at. Not to start from the constraints, but to start from to say what we want to see happening. And after to go through, look to the constraints and to decide if these constraints are still there or we can change them. If we start from the constraints, we know it will not happen. We know that the production of coupler in Europe is not sufficient to make a big bang. We know that we need an important amount of money. We need to have a gap between the starting point and the benefits. But the question is, which is, as a sector, what we want to see? 3 years deployment, 4 years deployment? And after, we need to go and eliminate all the barriers that were there. And after, most probably, we'll come back also to the European Parliament and asking, okay, maybe this we need to have support to do this, but we commit that by this date, you will have a rail freight with X thousand coupler deployed, ensuring that the single wagon load approach is a business model that is sustainable.
So start from the opportunities rather than the constraints. Absolutely. You said coming back to the European Parliament. We'll come back to Anna on that one, because the decoupling of data from liability sounds like a very positive way forward, but I wonder whether the regulatory regime will actually allow for that at the moment, or whether there needs to be some kind of legislative changes to enable that data sharing.
Let me say we are at the beginning of that, but it also was the rail in general, and we have to work on it. But we have to see the pressure from the operators and from the whole sector. If you need it and you come join and you say to us we need it, it will be much more easy than when some politicians in their room just are speaking about data and what do they need. So we need the pressure from the sector to be really to have this clear message. If you want us as a sector to help you to fulfill the climate goal in the sector, we need first, second, third, and that's the way it works. So please come to us and formulate it in an easy way so that we can understand. And it's not easy with the data because of the different interface, but we have some other sector where it is much more complicated, and we have it now. So I am sure we can we can manage, help you to make the regulatory framework that the data can be managed. I just want to come back maybe to another point you said before, because it's really important to me. I see in the transport sector always this kind of narrative that it will be in the future an incredible increase of goods that we see transporting all over Europe. And I'm not sure that this idea is right. I'm not sure it's not right, although I don't have the truth. But I think sometimes it's a little bit weird. We are entering in a way in a new period where we know we need circular economy. We need recycling. We have a 3D printing. We are going to be really more aware how many stuff and raw materials and products we want to transport or not. And I hope the whole society will come with. And I'm not sure if putting a scenario that we are going to be to transport a double volume on goods is the message that enabling us to do the right thing for rail transport. I want to shift from road to rail, and I hope that we are going to be smarter in every process and that we don't need so much good anymore. I have to say it on this point, because sometimes if you overload the discussion, after that, everybody thinks, okay, every sector have to be more. And so you don't have the right regulatory framework to make the push for the rail if you just think, oh, we are going to be overwhelmed by much goods. No, I think we are going to learn a lot about that, and I hope we're going to go towards to rail and do the good frameworks, and also the operators are there. And I think as a politic, what we can do, and the sector can help us, is for example, supporting a label that really works. Not a kind of label that you just have on each product if it came per rail or not. I'm not so enthusiastic about this idea, but a label on each product, how the CO2 emission are from the transport from this product in the whole chain. And that could be a tremendous added value for rail freight, because always, if you have a mainly time of transport by rail, the CO2 print from rail is going to be lower. So I think those kind of label could be could be an enabler for doing the political works we said before, with push and pull, really clear that we want to go towards more freight on rail. And so I hope we're going more in this direction. Of course, we need the technological innovation, but we have also to make the job interesting, and to see and to speak for the sector that we are part of a common adventure to decarbonize our society. The rail is at the core of this adventure, so they're going to have some change, but also the jobs, and that's coming also with the digitization and automation, are going to be more interesting. And you are part of a big adventure. I think we can have a new kind of jobs, a new person coming in the branch with this narrative.
Lovely.
Carlo, yes. Intervene? Yeah, sorry, because I think it's a very good point. I think what has been just said by Anna is absolutely valuable. The question is not to look at an increase of transport as such. The question is to be sure that rail is ready to be future-proof. We need to target a rail system that is available 24/7, capable to accommodate X number of trains on a mixed traffic per day. And this system should be able to answer these evolving needs. And maybe today we have a certain business model associated with it. We have a lot of raw materials that are transported. In the future, maybe we'll go moving more to high-speed rail cargo, where we different type of packages. So maybe instead of raw materials, we will transport some type of powder or materials like this that will be after printed in some location with 3D printing. Whatever it will be the solution, rail has to be the system capable to engage with the society to deliver the goods and the services expected to meet the growth expectations. This is really the key point, is not to do things for increasing goods. And the circular economy principle is also part of the Europe's rail future activities. We know already now, rail is the most sustainable mode of transport from the study of the European Environmental Agency. but still we can do things. And the approach of circular economy is a fundamental one. Today we have assets that are lasting 40 years. The wagon are typical decades. Now the question is what we do with these wagons that are most probably arriving to the end of their life. Which is the solution that we want to have this for this? And can we reduce maybe the life cycle of the let's say fleets in order to be able to upgrade them in a much faster way? We have seen this happening in other modes of transport. But how we manage the full life cycle of the assets, not only when we produce or we put in operation, but when we dismiss and what we do with this material. Are we able, and we have a full cycle that ensure that this material will be reused for the new concept of trains. So a really important concept. I think today, let's say we have in front of us, I look at now purely from the perspective of the Europe's Rail Research Innovation Program. In front of us, we have 10 years. And in these 10 years, especially in the first 5 years to start with, we need to come up with a prototype, a demonstrator of solution that can be deployed in the following 5 years. This should be the clear target. This should be a clear objective that as members, as beneficiaries, as stakeholders, as sector, we need to deliver at societal level. I think this is really, and maybe taking key example, the DAC is one, ATO is another one, and engaging with the staff in order to ensure this type of transition, it will be a fundamental change. If we don't, it was said at the beginning, this is the European Year of Rail. I think ever in my previous 5 years, I heard so much speaking about rail, the Connecting Europe Express as a major event in which we show one side the success of rail, but at the same time, the obstacle to performance of rail. So I think this is really the opportunity in front of us. We know it's true that the recovery and resilience funds is estimated up to, I understood, more than 50 billion dedicated to investment in rail. So all these should be coordinated, consistent, and really having the objective to create a rail system that is future-proof, capable to serve the needs, evolving needs of the population.
Mm. Interesting. Yes, there's a lot in there. We've had an immediate question in from the audience, and do remember you can send in questions whenever you want. Carlo, picking up on that, somebody just asked you, did you understand correctly that you were talking about reducing the life cycle of rolling stock, or?
Yeah, it's a quite debatable question. I take an example. I know that in other countries, without mentioning them, some high-speed trains have a life cycle of 10 years and not 30 years. Now the question is this the correct solution? I don't know. We are doing research innovation from this point of view. But today, one of the reasons is to understand how we introduce in a continuous manner the innovative technology inside the rail system. So upgrading, it's always working, we know it, but up to which point? At a certain point of time, the discussion we have now at the moment on the migration plan of the DAC, the coupler itself is valuable more than most of the wagon around at the moment. Do you upgrade them and there is still a future for them, or maybe not? Or maybe with the digital automatic coupling, we will not need 600,000 wagons in Europe, and maybe we are able to operate with much less wagons. So these questions are on the table. I'm not here to propose an answer. What I'm saying is that we simply cannot continue to do business as we have done.
No, sure.
And if we change it, which is the solution, has to be explored.
May I add a point to what Carlo told? And this is a very important argument in the industry. We are debating it. What is the right life cycle for a rolling stock? Indeed, you told at the beginning, the wagon today is a piece of iron. And maybe as a piece of iron, it doesn't need a continuous upgrade, and maybe it can continue to have a life cycle of 20, 30 years. But here, with the digitalization of the wagons, we have to remember that we are putting electronics everywhere on those wagons, and locomotive and communication channels and so on. And if we look at the technology, we were at 3G some years ago, and then 4G, and then 5G, and processor are changing and so on and so forth. maybe we have to be careful to look at the components and at the life cycle of the technology. I mean, maybe the wagon can continue to live 20, 30 years with the right maintenance. But if we look at the communication technology, we have to be smart enough in the development of the communication system to make a system that is hardware agnostic, because data and the data structure should be robust enough to be long life, let me say, long lasting, because you need to structure it and to harmonize it with the big brother, or let me say with the cloud, call it as you want. But the data structure has to be robust. On the other side, the provider of data is electronics, and this will change continuously over time. So the real scope would be really to ensure for the right part of the technology, the right convenient life cycle cost. I mean, I am an electronic engineer. I started in the company 30 years ago with the railways statement that the electronic system has to survive at least 25 years. This was when I started in '93 in the railways. I was coming from avionics and they came to railways. Today, a system surviving 23 years means that you have to stock processors and memories everywhere, because the life of a processor today is maximum 5 years, and then it changes technology. So even the requirement coming from the operator shall change. Otherwise, we will not have a flexible life cycle cost that will make competitive the technology that we are going to use today.
Absolutely. So we're talking about a wagon of systems rather in many ways, and the systems upgrade at different rates. Anna, you have your hand up. You want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask now here the audience, because in politics we have a kind of a idea what we should all do to make the rail freight better and to fulfill the competitiveness and to fulfill the goals. But we are not so sure what are the highest priority. So sometimes I hear, of course, this digitalization, so IATMS or the digital automatic coupling. On the other side, I hear no more go for harmonization on the hard stuff, on the rail and electrification, that your job as a politician. And on the other side, I hear, but your job is maybe to make the narrative and to have some labels so that the branch can fulfill and to have more more push in the market. So just I want to open here the question to you. What do you think are really the key priorities you need from politics, so that we begin with the first step and after taking the next ones?
Absolutely. So if the politicians put pressure on the sector must come to the politicians and put pressure on what it is that they need to deliver to, and what are the priorities. I don't know whether our UNIFE hosts can organize a quick online poll among the audience, but maybe Joseph, from your position at the agency, you have a sort of overview of the priorities and the sort of flexing pressures within the sector. Do you want to come back on the way you see the priorities?
Well, I believe, taking up from Anna's question, I believe the first priority that we need to have in Europe is more cooperation and more coordination, because as we have seen, rail freight, and in particular long distances, always involves going across borders. And then I believe we need to do a number of things that are mutually supportive, because we still have missing links. Yeah, undoubtedly that between some countries, example would be Belgium and France, there are not enough cross-border links. Then we have speed restrictions. Then we have axle load restrictions. Then we have lack of electrification. Then we don't have connection to ports. Then we don't have the intermodal terminal. So we have a very long to-do list, which is all necessary, because only then the effect of digitalization can be seen. Because if there is no rail connection, you can digitalize as much as you want, you will not improve the service. But when you have the connection and when it's electrified, then we can reap all the benefits. We need to deploy IATMS, and we need to deploy IATMS very quickly. We also, and digitalization can help us, we need to harmonize operation. and possibly we also need to attack some holy cows like the operational language, which I believe is one of the difficult aspects which makes rail less competitive than other transport modes. Aviation, automotive, maritime don't have the same issues. So the list of tasks on our agenda is quite long, but as I said before, we need progress in regulation, we need progress in innovation, but we also need progress in implementation. And the action has to start now. Carlo, Europe's rail joint undertaking is working for the system of the next generation. But in order to have a future, we need to also manage our current situation.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. I think yes, deliver the basics and then build on the basics. Absolutely. Both Roberto and Christoph have got their hands up now. Roberto, can I come to you next? You want to respond to that?
Sorry, may you say it again? I was having some noise on the network.
No. The floor is yours. You wanted to respond to Joseph. You had your hand up.
No, it's my mistake. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll go to Christoph then. Christoph.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And maybe to Anna's request, one thing for me is important, and Joseph mentioned it as well. We really have to bring the borders down. We really need a unified system, because we cannot afford any longer that in each and every, especially infrastructure region, we have to obey different rules. This will kill us, and this will also, let's say, maybe make the sector pretty slow, and we will experience this most likely in the next years when we're talking about homologating rail cars and freight cars now with electronics on it and with applications on it in the whole European Union and in the UIC sector. If we have to do this in each individual country for each wagon individually, we will die. And therefore, I think the highest priority in these terms is we really need, also from a regulation point of view, this sector, this European rail sector, to avoid that we end up with national solutions for different technologies, because this makes us expensive and this makes us finally then also slow.
And may I add, Christoph, the following? I think that the challenge here is very high, because as you say, there are too many national, local rules, standards that are preventing to develop something in a very quick and easy way. If we do not start from the very beginning to harmonize the so-called use cases and so on, we will fail. And the other point is the in advance approach to the approval of the new use cases from the European Railways Agency. I think we are opening a second Pandora box, that is the Pandora box of the new standards, because this train is brand new, is new. I mean, we are going to digitalize safety functions that today are handmade. If we look just at the so-called brake test, today is done by a man walking around the train with an hammer, hammering the pad to check if the brake is working. Tomorrow, everything will run through digital, and digital will deal with the safety integrity levels and so on. If we do not start from day one to have agencies that are working close to us to make gate review to verify continuously that we are proceeding the way, then we arrive at the end of the so-called V-cycle, and we put the baby in the hands of somebody that will kill everything, because we say your initial approach was wrong. Okay. The second point is that the initial approach cannot be country dependent. We need to enter in a single European Railways Agency from the requirement point of view, and then all the rest will flow smoothly to the end.
Absolutely. Not surprisingly, Joseph wants to respond to that. Yes, right. Top down, bottom up.
Well, there were two aspects in it. First, coming back to Christoph, as many of you might know, since June 2019, all freight wagons in the European Union are authorized by the agency, and we have currently authorized around 28,000 already. But this situation could change when we bring electricity to wagons, because for having electrical wagons, we have national rules. So one of the key tasks that we see for us is, on the one hand, to make sure to eliminate these national rules. And at the same time, this is also an infrastructure task, because the restrictions are mainly driven by some odd track circuits somewhere in the flat country, which could be replaced with an investment of a few 10,000 euros. But if not, we have dramatic costs for the entire sector. The other aspect is the harmonization of operational rules in regard to all these safety processes. On the one hand, this is absolutely necessary, as Roberto has said, because we cannot then, when we have deployed 450,000 wagons with the digital automatic coupling, then it's too late to start about the new processes. But I believe it's a dramatic opportunity. And again, I'm referring to the system pillar here. It's a dramatic opportunity to bring up those solutions now, so that the solutions can be introduced as European solutions and turn down the borders in Rail Europe. Because if we come with a European solution, together with the technology, together with the data, then we create a European basis for a successful European railway system.
Absolutely. I think everybody in this panel would agree with that as an objective. Is there any mechanism in place, as Roberto was warning about, new national rules emerging around new technologies? Can you actually prevent new national rules from happening?
Well, we cannot prevent them from appearing, but these national rules need to be validated by us. And normally, we are very critical. We assess these national rules, and only when there is a real justification, we allow these national rules to become indeed effective. But it is a tremendous work, and of course it needs resources, and as you know, we are struggling with resources in the agency.
Indeed, I gather resources for the agency is something of a challenge in the coming budget period. Yes. Right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in the last 70 odd minutes or so. We have about 5 minutes left. So unless anybody has an urgent question from the floor, I'm going to invite, we have the UNIFE Director General Philippe Citroën has arrived to join us. So Philippe, would you like to sum up your thoughts on the panel?
Yes, so good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I would like to thank Anna, Carla, Carlo, Christophe, Robert, Joseph, and yourself, Chris, for this participation in this very important debate. Of course, freight transport is, it has been said, is already responsible for a large share of Europe's CO2 emissions. Until 2030, the overall European transport volume is expected to increase by another 30%. And UNIFE supports the Green Deal target of shifting a substantial part of today's freight volume towards rail to accelerate the shift towards a climate-neutral continent. And we know that we can count on the support of Anna, who has been so active with supporting so much the rail sector. So the freight rail, from what I understood, needs a boost of competitiveness, flexibility, performance, reliability, and profitability, so it can become the sustainable backbone of transport services for a European multimodal logistics industry. UNIFE, because you talk a lot about this, we support the introduction of the DAC as a crucial puzzle piece towards enabling the digital and intelligent freight train. But we see that we have important challenges need to be overcome for the transition, and especially the harmonization of operational standards in rail freight. So the ERGU is well placed to pick up on the important work carried by Shift to Rail 2, and I would like to thank again Carlo for the excellent work done on Shift to Rail 2 and for the preparation of ERGU, and which has just started the 1st of December. And we know that on Shift to Rail there was the IP5 who started the transformation process to a digitized and automated rail freight system. I think it was quite a lot of success, and we are sure that the ERGU will be able to complete this process with its flagship Area 5 activity. So doubling rail freight by 2050 will be essential for achieving net zero by 2050. It will, of course, transform how Europeans across the continent receive goods and conduct business, but I have the feeling that we will have to make huge efforts if you want really to double rail freight by 2050. So on my side, just want to thank you again, all of you, and you, Chris, for the moderation of this debate. And this is for us the last European Year of Race webinar. We've been able to organize 10 webinars in 2021, which is, according to me, not too bad. And the next meeting will be the European Rail Award ceremony in February. Let's see if it will be in person, if it will be a hybrid event like it was this year. We have to cross the fingers on this, but we'll be very happy to meet again with all of you and doing this important event, and we'll see who won the prize, who will receive the award. So thank you very much to all of you for being here. It was a pleasure to be again and to discuss on these important freight topics, and thank you, and let's keep in touch, and as we say, stay safe during this kind of complicated period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Philippe. It's very interesting. A very good session. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Thank you for joining us, the audience, and have a good morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.